Hi there, Mark here from High Level Listening, and in this post I'm going to show you 6 Part 3 questions taken from June 2017. In this video I'll show you some different techniques you can use to give examples in Part 3. Because Part 3 questions are often about wider topics and trends, examples can help you support your point and add important coherence to your answer. You've got lots of opportunities in Part 3 to talk about yourself, your society, your country, and your own observations about the wider world. So I'm going to show you 6 different ways to give examples in Part 3, so you can talk for longer, you can keep your answers coherent, and hopefully you can raise your band. After you watch this video, you can practice the same techniques with the same question. There's also a worksheet attached to this post as well with some exercises to help you get used to those phrases. So we're going to be looking at these 6 example phrases in this post. The first 3 are specifically personal phrases. When I, as for me, in my experience. These ones should be used when you're talking about yourself or giving a personal example. The final 3, in my country, I've seen, I've read, and I've noticed, you can see or you can find. These ones are much better when you're talking about society or the wider world in general. So the first one we'll look at is when I. You can use when I followed by lots of different verbs to talk about experiences in the past or your present habits as well. If you want to describe a relevant experience you've had, you could use a past tense verb. You can say when I was or when we were, and then talk about a specific moment and what happened in that experience. The first 2 examples are talking about the past. When I was a kid, I remember there were a lot of other children playing outside in the evenings, but these days I notice more adults in the park than youngsters. When I was growing up, only really wealthy people had mobile phones. If you want to talk about a present habit, you can use the present tense. For example, when I need to unwind, I normally go for a walk or listen to music. Or when I have to buy a gift for someone, I take a long time deciding what to get them. So here's a full Part 3 answer using this technique. The question is, what are the benefits of online shopping? Well, I think there are plenty of good reasons to shop online, especially nowadays. I can usually find exactly what I want in just a couple of minutes when I look for something on one of the big online stores like Amazon or Alibaba. The sheer number of products they have on their sites is pretty incredible. When I was growing up, I remember that Amazon was only for buying books, but now you can buy everything from TVs to baby food. So the choice you have means I rarely even look in a physical storefront anymore these days. Another benefit is that items are typically cheaper online than in a physical store. I suppose because online companies don't have to pay for store assistants or things like that, which means they can offer a more competitive price than a retail shop can. You also get to read product reviews before you decide something. When I want to buy something online, I definitely check the reviews before I decide to put the money down for it, and that's something I can't always do in an actual shop. So those are some of the benefits I know of. So if a trend is a little bit different from your own experience, then you can use as for me. This signals that what you do is a little bit different from what other people might do, and that you're going to explain how it's different and what's different about it. This phrase makes it easier for the examiner to understand that what you might say next is going to be different or a contrasting idea to what you've just explained. As for me, I prefer watching movies at home instead of the cinema. As for my friends, they can't understand why I get up so early on the weekends. As for my family, we're spread out all over the world, Canada, the UK, Australia, so we don't see each other that often. Take my friends or family, for example. They're really into sports, and my dad and my older brothers go to the soccer stadium for every match. If these habits are a little bit different from what you've explained before, as for me is the perfect way to do it. So here's another Part 3 answer using that phrase. The question is, do people's goals change as they get older? Sure, I definitely think so. I think people are more ambitious when they're younger, probably because they realize they have time to make mistakes, as well as more chances to change their career path if things don't work out for them. In that sense, there's less pressure on them. Take my friends, for example. They've recently become more concerned about finding a stable job, paying off debts, and securing their future. A couple of years ago, those same friends were just as interested in having new experiences abroad and trying to see as much of the world as possible, so they've certainly changed. I think settling down and thinking about your future is a part of maturing, so it makes sense that people's goals change as they get older. As for me, I'm looking to start a whole new chapter of my life in another country after I pass the IELTS test. I don't think my ambitions have changed much since I was a teenager, because I've always loved traveling and experiencing totally different cultures. That's probably why my friends all think I'm either very brave or totally insane for wanting to move abroad. This is our third and final example phrase for a personal experience. In my experience is useful in questions when you need to give advice or suggestions. You can support your ideas by speaking from your own experience. How do you know that this is good advice? Or how do you know that this idea is a helpful one? Your own experience and your own life is a great source of examples in part 3, and you can use them really easily with this phrase. In my experience, even if you make a lot of money, you'll always find new things to worry about. From my experience, communication is vital in any relationship. Speaking from experience, people who work too long and too much usually burn out. From what I've seen, there are more advertisements online than ever before. So here's another part 3 answer. The question is, for parents, what is important when bringing up their child? Well, in my experience, as the father of 2 kids, I think rules and boundaries are some of the most important things to bear in mind when raising kids. Children are always trying to figure out what they can and can't do. While I don't think they're trying to annoy their parents, their behavior totally depends on how their parents react. If I don't nip a problem in the bud, sometimes it can turn into something worse because my children don't know where the limit is and they assume that their actions are acceptable when they're not. Also, from my experience, praising and encouraging children makes a big difference to their confidence. I really try to congratulate and reward my kids every time they do something smart or creative, and in return they strive for more positive attention. From what I've seen, if a parent starts to neglect their child's efforts or cries for attention, then the child might start misbehaving in order to get some negative attention, because that's the only way they can get it. So it's up to the mum and dad to make sure that their child is getting their attention, but in a positive way. In my town, in my city, or in my country are really useful phrases when you're talking about trends or habits that are specific to your own country or your own town or your own city. You can use it to talk about work, school, or even university as well. For example, in my hometown, people are really friendly and always say hello to each other. In the capital city, people are slightly less friendly and are always in a rush. In the UK, people like to complain, especially about the weather. In my office, we have casual Fridays, which puts everyone in a good mood. Here's an example answer. The question is, what kind of books do children read in your country? I would say that one of the most popular books has got to be Harry Potter. In my country, young people and even adults couldn't get enough of those books. Pretty much every British teenager has read the books by now, or at least seen the movies. Other than that, most young children in the UK read some of the classic fairy tales like Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and so on. I think virtually everyone knows those stories by heart because they're so well known. Generally speaking, I suppose parents and teachers try to tell stories which have a strong moral to teach their children some important values like sharing, helping others, and being honest. Those kind of stories are the go-tos for teachers and mums and dads in my country anyway. I've seen, I've read, and I've noticed are probably my favourite ways to give examples in part 3. They're a really easy way to include the present perfect in your answers, which can be quite tricky, and it's useful to comment on other people. Because the examples aren't about you, you can talk about what you've seen other people do. So this matches the impersonal style that we need in part 3. I've seen that beaches in Spain are really crowded during the summertime. I've read that a lot of graduates are struggling to find jobs after university. I've heard that some British universities are teaching Mandarin these days. I've noticed that talking about politics often makes people angry quite quickly. I've realized that English is really helpful in any country you visit. Here's another Part 3 example. The question is, what do you think are the qualities of a good leader or a good decision maker? In my opinion, I think a decisive person is able to compromise quickly. In other words, they try to listen to both parties and come up with a solution that satisfies both of them equally. That way, neither side feels hard done by or upset by that leader's decision. I've noticed that quality in a lot of assertive and confident leaders that I've worked with. Another trait I've seen is their ability to think outside the box. In some situations, none of the options you have seem ideal, and a good leader is able to come up with a solution that maybe no one else has considered, whether it's from their experience or just their general intelligence. Also, a final trait I've observed is good communication skills. More often than not, people who are disagreeing have normally just misunderstood one another and typically want the same thing. So communication solves a lot of those problems, and a good leader should help people realize that. The final way to give examples is also the most impersonal way. You can tell or you can find. Use the impersonal you to talk about changes or trends that you can see in person, like when you're walking down the street, visiting on holiday, or actually living in that country. You can see more and more technology inside classrooms these days. You can find more people who speak English in the major cities in Korea. You can tell that people are more relaxed in the countryside, and you will find that most Japanese people are incredibly helpful, but a little bit shy about speaking English with tourists. You will find means that you will understand if you go there, or you'll realize when you see this. So this is a good way to make a point that is less commonly known, or maybe fewer people know about. Here's our final Part 3 example answer. The question is, what kinds of foreign food are popular in your country? Well, in London you can eat almost anything you like. We've got restaurants from all over the world, and the majority of them have highly skilled chefs from the same country as the cuisine. So it's really authentic and really tasty too. In the UK, I'd say the most popular foreign food has to be Indian curry. You can find Indian restaurants all over the place, and most of them offer home delivery services as well. On top of that, we've got a lot of Chinese restaurants, although the Chinese food in the UK has been westernized quite a lot, so it's not exactly the real deal, but it tastes good and it's also incredibly popular. As well as that, Turkish food is very popular. If you go out at night, you will see a lot of people eating doner kebabs before they go home. It's almost a kind of tradition for British people. Those three would probably be the most popular foreign foods I've noticed. So there you go. There are 6 different ways you can give examples in Part 3. If you want to practice these phrases some more, you can download the free worksheet attached to this post, and then you can start applying your own ideas to these phrases to help you prepare for your speaking test. If you want even more content like this on all parts of the IELTS speaking test, then you can check out our free IELTS mini course, which is also in a link attached to this post. You'll get 4 emails focusing on part 1, 2, and 3, as well as bonus vocabulary for the IELTS. There'll be 15-minute videos focusing on part 1, 2, and 3 as well. You'll get 4 downloadable worksheets, and then you'll get to practice all those new skills with 60 up-to-date IELTS questions. And then when you're feeling ready to put all those tips into practice, you can send me your own IELTS test recordings, and you'll get my verbal and written feedback within 48 hours. You can check that out on this post as well. Also, if you sign up for the mini course, you'll see a link for a 20% discount. So it's worth checking out both and getting some expert feedback on your own schedule. I hope this video was helpful. You can leave your own examples in the comments below if you want some extra help. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.